Something that most players don't know is that Urbain and Taunie actually have major dialogue differences. In fact, most of their lines are actually very different from one another, to the point where even like the side dialogue that appears when you're in the middle of a battle or a rogue mega battle or whatever it may be, those lines are different. So Pokemon and Game Freak put a lot of time into differentiating subtle qualities of these two rival characters, and honestly, I'm quite surprised at some of these differences. In fact, it's to the point where I think Urbain is actually the better and funnier rival. Now, you may call it recency bias because I played the game as the male character, and so Taunie was my rival, and I really liked Taunie. But seeing these dialogue options from Urbain, I feel like I kind of missed out a little bit. So from the get-go, I think Urbain comes off a little bit more hot-headed, or he's a little bit quicker with his words, and he seems a lot more relaxed and chilled and like that type of thing, you know what I mean? He seems more casual is what I'm trying to get at, whereas Taunie, she's also very casual, but in comparison to Urbain, like Taunie uses manners, she uses please and thank you, and she's a lot more kind and, you know, caring with her words. But Urbain is just like, is straight with it. We'll go through a few examples now, but one of the examples that I know everyone wants to see is the first line where Taunie is like, oh, we'll look nice standing side by side when she's talking about filming us for the Hotel Z ad. Yeah, and Urbain is just like, we'll look natural standing side by side. It's a very small difference there, but I think it says a lot about the characters. Urbain's kind of got it, you know, he's kind of more smooth with it, I would say. Again, his dialogue is also more casual, and this really shows when you catch that wild Bunnelby that they force you to catch in the beginning of the game, and Urbain's like, you're really cooking now, whereas Tawnie's just like, nice, you know? So he uses a lot more like casual Gen Z, like internet like terms, you know? I sound like a boomer saying all that, but you get what I'm saying, man. He just more with the times. In that cutscene where you get stuck in the ZA Royale and Floette has to come save you, Tawnie's dialogue makes it seem like she's out there to protect you, where Urbain's dialogue is kind of like, yo, come at me, bro. Like, come at me. I got this. I'll fight you. Like that type of thing. And people pointed that out on Twitter as well. I remember it was a big deal for a little while. So it just shows the difference in their energy. When you defeat your first ever trainer in the ZA Royale, Urbain's like, you know, send them packing. And then Tawnie's like, you're crushing them type of thing. I don't know. Just like, it's very small changes. But when I look at it, it's like Tawnie's just a lot more. Her vocab is less surprising than Urbain's. Urbain's vocab is very surprising. I look at that, I'm like, dang, bro, this guy's on the internet. And small things like later when we get the Challengers ticket and stuff, he's like, yo, whereas Tawnie's like, hey, man, it's so cool. This guy seems like a bro. Like, why wasn't he my rival? One of my all-time favorite lines from Urbain here is when they show off the croissant curry, and this guy, Tawnie's just like, you know, it's just my own creation kind of thing. You know, it's just my signature dish. But Urbain's like, this is my brainchild. Like, what? My brainchild? Oh my god. After this little conversation, Tawnie's like, yeah, sorry it got so heated. Meanwhile, Urbain's like, sorry for the hubbub. Like, I haven't heard that word in so long. Oh man. When we go to Cafe Nuvo for the first time and order a coffee, Tawnie is just like, you know, she asks us what our order is. Whereas Urbain, he's kind of telling Griselle what our order is. We obviously answer for ourselves, but like, you know, it feels more forward, if that makes any kind of sense. He's on top of it. He's really trying to be like a dude. I can see what all the people on Twitter were saying about Urbain being like a flirt. It makes sense, but he also just emits crazy bro energy, I feel. When Vinny calls early in the morning, Urbain's straight up like, you know, I hope you don't expect us to be there 24/7. We ain't ready for that. And Tawnie's just like, we're not on 24/7, you know? Like, it feels different to me. Maybe I'm looking too hard into it, but I really feel like the energy is so different between the two. One of the biggest examples of the difference of this energy is when we first meet Ivor in the Fist of Justice. And Ivor goes on about his ideas about how people and Pokemon should live in harmony, how wild zones shouldn't be there and everything. And Tawnie's just like, yeah, it's an interesting idea, but it's never gonna happen. Whereas Urbain is just like, yeah, this guy's wasting his breath. Like, what? It's so funny. Like, how, I'm so surprised this comes from like a main Pokemon rival. A nice rival at that, you know, like, if it was Silver, this makes complete sense. But this coming from like the friendly rival type, it's so jokes. To add on to the topic of formalities, when Urbain and Tawnie find out about the debt and they find out that there's like a fine print in terms of the interest and everything, Tawnie is like, her verbiage again is pretty normal. She's like, oh no, type of thing, you know? Whereas like, Urbain's like, nah, come on. And it's really, I don't know, it's so subtle. But then when Corbeau comes into Hotel Z to pay off, you know, the rival's debt, friggin' Tawnie's all like, sir, this is too generous. Whereas Urbain's like, whoa, no, come on. You know, he's like, there's no sir, no nothing. One surprising change that I noticed was that when I played the game, Tawnie and them always called us our secret weapon. Like the player character was a secret weapon. But Urbain says the stealth MVP. They refer to the protagonist as the stealth MVP, and I find that very, very funny. I actually like stealth MVP more than I like secret weapon. Stealth MVP, like, what is that? Stealth most valuable player, like, what? But it sounds cool. I like it. Stealth MVP. I like it a lot. When we go to get the clothes for the Jacinthe tournament, Tawnie calls the whole ordeal a pain, whereas Urbain is so straight with it, and he's just like, yeah, this lady, she's a lot. Like, he's so direct, bro. When LeBain invites us in for the tournament, Tawnie only says one thing, like, were you waiting for us all this while? Whereas Urbain has two lines. He also says, basically, were you waiting all this while? But he also goes on further and says, I can't tell if that's sheer dedication or if you just have nothing better to do. Like what a starky comment, right? But Tawnie literally has nothing after that. Like, were you waiting all this time? She has no lines, whereas Urbain has this. So that difference in particular really makes me feel and think like they really want to separate the personalities of these two. But I think they get it when they talk about Jacinthe because, you know, Tawnie's all like, Jacinthe's bad news, and Urbain's all like, yeah, she legit worries me. So Urbain gets it. Urbain gets it. I even think when Jacinthe puts up the Jacinthe zone, Urbain saying must you Jacinthe is more fitting dialogue than Tawnie going like this can't be real. Actually, it works either way, but I think Urbain having that, like, you know, that little bit of spite towards Jacinthe there makes sense. Whereas Tawnie's just like, it's there, but it's not directed towards Jacinthe. So it's kind of nice that Urbain had that. When LeBain shows her true colors when Jacinthe's gone, Urbain's like, did you just drop your personality? Tawnie also says something pretty funny where she's like, I think LeBain's just as much trouble as Jacinthe. But Urbain's definitely, his response is definitely funnier without question. Urbain even calls out like the narcissism in Jacinthe when looking at the tournament and stuff and being like, she really catered everything towards herself, where Tawnie's just like, yeah, there's things, planning things with your own convenience in mind, and then there's this, you know, it's not as direct or funny. Or Urbain's just, because he's so blunt with it, it's funny. Then there's a string of dialogue that I can just show you here, like Urbain's like, we can peace out from the Jacinthe tournament, where Tawnie's like, we can bid the tournament adieu, and then Urbain's like, yo, Floette usually hangs out with us, whereas like Tawnie's just like, Floette usually joins us. And then Urbain's like, well, dig into dinner while it's all flaky and saucy, and Tawnie's just like, let's just dig in. When they first interact with Emma too, Urbain actually mentions wanting to be the strongest Mega Evolution user, whereas Tawnie says something else entirely, which is pretty cool because it's like, you know, that small bit of dialogue adds to the story overall. So I'm just like, why did they give that to Tawnie? It just, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. Again, when it comes to manners, when they're talking to Jet about their mother's jacket, you know, Tawnie's all like, please and thank you type of thing. Urbain's just like, yeah, let me know, dog. This guy. I mentioned earlier how like the side dialogue as there's battles going on and stuff is different between the two. And I haven't really looked into that too much, but when fighting Mega Dragonite, Urbain's like Dragonite's raging, whereas Tawnie's like it's getting angrier or madder or something like this. And raging is just so much more fun. It's just more fun. It's more of a fun word to use. I wish Tawnie used the same thing. It would have been really funny to hear her say it. You'd be surprised, but the end game of like the main story doesn't have too many dialogue differences. I mean, I guess that's not too surprising because they kind of need to keep the conversation as similar as possible, I guess, because it's so story heavy. But post game again, it turns into, you know, Urbain being funny and Tawnie being more formal. Jacinthe and them show up and Urbain's like, "Buh?" And Tawnie's just like regular conversation. Urbain's like, "I'm not even gonna touch this conversation." And Tawnie's just like, "Yeah, Vinny's waiting, let's just go." And so, man, it's so jokes. Urbain's dialogue when it comes to Jet, you know, them realizing that they're both family, is also very interesting because this is the one time where Tawnie isn't using please and thank you and Urbain is. I find it, I don't know, it's very fascinating. I'm trying to put myself in the two characters' shoes and trying to see, you know, why that would be or how they would react. I think for Tawnie it's a lot more shock probably. So, you know, that's there. And then even as the conversation continues, Urbain's like, "You want me to take your leading place in Quasartico?" Whereas Tawnie's, again, you know, she knows what she's doing. She's like, you want me to be the CEO? So again, Urbain just being a little bit more casual there, despite using please and thank yous. Urbain is even more realistic in this, where he's like, "You want me to take over, but we just met," type of thing, you know? When Tawnie doesn't question that at all, so it's kind of funny. And even when we give them their blessings and like, you know, go for it and all this, like, you know, be the CEO or lead Quasartico, Urbain's like, "Thank you, you're the best." Tawnie's just like, "Thank you so much." There's nothing crazy there. And I was like, again, it just very, very minute things, but it really does change the personality and the way we look at these characters. At least it does for me. And I'm sure there's more of this to come with the Mega Dimension DLC, and I'm really looking forward to it because I do think these two will have some story relevance to it, like a lot more than what people may think. That's what I think personally. So with that, I do think we'll see some more personality differences as well.